Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Henry Stone, Associate Professor of Environmental Sciences and Sustainability here at the University of Lynchburg. And I am here to talk to you today about what environmental justice has to do with sustainability. I teach primarily for our undergraduate program in environmental science and sustainability, but my area of expertise really is in sustainability. But one of the courses I'm most excited about teaching is a new course in environmental and climate justice. So what does environmental justice have to do with sustainability? We'll start by exploring those terms a little bit and start specifically with sustainability, since that's something I've been studying for my entire academic career. So what is sustainability? It's most useful to apply that broad concept to a very specific context, but in general, it's all about the integration of ecological, environmental, social, political, economic systems to help humanity thrive. I'm most interested in environmental sustainability, which involves making sure that we are not undermining our ecological support systems that support human communities. But really what I'm interested in talking to you about today is, again, what justice has to do with sustainability. My premise is that we can't actually really have environmental sustainability if there's extreme social injustice. Right, so what is environmental justice? There's actually a very clear definition that I'll offer from the Environmental Protection Agency that adopted environmental justice as one of its priorities quite a while ago now, about 20 years ago. And the EPA defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. So we know that there are a lot of environmental injustices because there are different exposures to environmental hazards. The classic is toxic waste sites or landfills. We know that in the large part, communities of color and impoverished communities are more likely to be exposed to or have nearby toxic landfill sites or waste areas or pipelines. Climate justice is a new-ish type of environmental justice, and climate justice has a lot to do with unequal distribution of impacts of climate change. Again, impoverished communities and communities of color around the globe tend to experience the more substantial impacts that we're seeing from climate change. In addition, there's a concept of a frontline community. So in places where oil development or other natural resource development is happening, especially, again, pipelines, communities that are most impacted by those developments are considered to be frontline communities. Similarly, we also refer to communities that are experiencing a lot of environmental injustices as EJ communities, environmental justice communities. In my work here at the University of Lynchburg, I have been serving as our Director of Sustainability. It's a small role right now, but primarily what I'm helping our university do is achieve better sustainability practices. For instance, the university is committed to achieving carbon neutrality. In 2021, we became the first institution in Virginia to actually achieve carbon neutrality. But one of the parts of the commitment to carbon neutrality includes helping plan to be more climate resilient. Climate resilience is being prepared to weather the impacts of a changing climate. So here in Central Virginia, one of the impacts we know we are likely to see more and more of is high heat events. And that is one of the aspects of climate change that has some of the most significant health concerns. So, for instance, people who are already suffering from poor health or health inequities, including things like asthma and diabetes, they are more vulnerable to high heat events. Just a few degrees warmer temperature can really exacerbate some of those health conditions. So what we're seeing around the country and around the world is that, again, often impoverished communities and communities of color, underprivileged communities are more vulnerable to high heat events. So here in Lynchburg, some colleagues and I have chosen to focus on preparing for high heat events. And we're especially interested in particularly vulnerable communities in our climate resilience planning. So through a grant from the Virginia Foundation of Independent Colleges, in the summer of 2021, 3 area institutions participated in a heat mapping event. Several volunteers and local students and faculty drove several different routes, 5 different routes around the city of Lynchburg at 3 different times during the day on July 15th, 2021. And we were able to identify some of the areas in Lynchburg that are actually hotter than others. This is called the urban heat island effect, and that urban heat island effect is a commonly understood phenomenon that involves cities being hotter than the surrounding landscape, right? Because cities have a lot of concrete and pavement that absorbs heat during the day, and fewer trees and green areas, green spaces to cushion the community from those high heat areas, right? So less tree cover, more pavement means hotter areas. But what we're learning is that there's a lot of variation within a city regarding where the highest heat areas are, right? Clearly there are some neighborhoods with fewer trees. And that what we're also learning is that those neighborhoods often tend to be the underprivileged neighborhoods. So one of the things we're seeing, again, around the country is a relationship between what we know as formerly redlined housing districts and the more hot areas of cities. In the 1930s, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, which was a federal corporation, embarked on a project of grading or rating different neighborhoods in communities based on how safe they'd be for investing in mortgages. The green neighborhoods were the ones that were good investments for mortgage corporations to offer homeowner mortgages. The red areas were the ones that were not recommended by the corporation for mortgages. Of course, in the 1930s, a lot of those neighborhoods were ethnic minorities or already impoverished neighborhoods, right? So what we're seeing is a perfect example of structural racism, in which now some of those formerly redlined districts are the hottest neighborhoods around in our American cities. In Lynchburg, that means a lot of the neighborhoods downtown, which were formerly redlined neighborhoods and are still currently some of our highest proportion of African American residents. So we're especially concerned about some of those neighborhoods and their vulnerability to high heat events. So in addition to collecting some of the data to help inform our climate resilience work and our environmental justice work, we are also proposing different possible solutions to this urban heat island effect and the disparities we're seeing. So some of us are working on things like designing tree planting campaigns. Again, the Virginia Foundation of Independent Colleges and the Virginia Department of Forestry have partnered to provide grants to communities around the Commonwealth of Virginia to plant trees. This was an outgrowth from our heat mapping work last summer in 2021. And again, here in Lynchburg, the partner institutions that are members of the VFIC include here the University of Lynchburg, also Randolph College and Sweetbriar College. So I have colleagues and students that I'm working with at those institutions as well to help our community plan to be more climate resilient. Environmental sustainability is not possible without environmental justice. As long as there are so many social inequities, there will be unsustainable impacts on our natural environment as well. All people, regardless of their status in our society, deserve fair treatment and equal access to a healthy environment and a healthy quality of life. We can't have environmental sustainability without social justice. The University of Lynchburg is actually, of course, on land that was traditionally stewarded by the Monacan Indian Nation, and in fact, in February of 2021, 2022, the university adopted an official land acknowledgement statement, which I also consider to be an aspect of environmental justice. Clearly, Indigenous people in North America have experienced grave injustices, and in fact, their worldviews and perspectives on the relationship between people and the environment has a lot to teach the world about living sustainably and living in a humane and just society. I would like to acknowledge in our land acknowledgement statement the Monacan Indian Nation as traditional stewards of land which the University of Lynchburg now inhabits, and offer my respect to Monacan people, past, present, and emerging.